Coming to you live from an abandoned storage locker somewhere in Mesa, Arizona. You're tuned into the Important Nonsense Podcast with Steve Bonham.
Attention, Alan Hearn's mom. His knee is better. You can stop worrying.
And Neil Smith.
Even with the concussion, as long as he's cleared, probably don't have a better option.
Ooh, boom shakalaka.
Hello, Important Nonsense Podcast. Steve Bonham, Neil Smith, the original dynamic duo. Well, not the original. We'll get sued for that.
I was going to say Adam West's estate is going to probably have some comments about that. I don't think we can go with that as a tagline.
The living dynamic duo? How about that?
No, they can't really argue about that. Neither can.
See?
No, yeah, and I don't think Burt Ward's. I think Burt Ward is still with us, but I don't think Burt Ward has the money to sue us. So we're probably
only half. He's not a duo.
We're probably good. Well, Burt Ward's had an interesting career. That's a whole other podcast.
I mean, I don't know. It could be this podcast.
We can do that. Yeah, you want to go through Burt Ward's film credits? I can do that with you.
All right, let's pull up.
Probably
IMDb
more important. Probably more informative. He was in a movie where he basically played like a space wizard, wore like a little rubber hat. It was terrible.
I mean, it sounds good. You had me at space wizard.
It was interesting.
I mean, it sounds good. He was also in a Denzel Washington film called Out of Time in 2003. So
I never saw that. I have to check that out.
It's good to know.
I have to check all that out.
I'll have to go back and watch that now. No, we're talking about trade deadline roundup, basically. Pretty quiet on the trade deadline, especially for the guy I felt the worst for, Marlon Mack. I mean, he wanted out. They agreed that they were going to look for a trade. How long ago, Neil? Like 3-4 weeks ago?
It's probably something like that. It's at least a month.
They're like, oh yeah, we'll find a trade that works for everybody. And then nothing. No, you can't tell me nobody wanted a 25-year-old running back who's been the workhorse before, who has had a decent career to this point and has looked good this season when he's been given opportunity. But no, he's still the number 3 in Indy, unfortunately. So
it's unfortunate. That's probably the only word for it.
Yeah.
It's what are you going to do? He's just going to have to dig it out, and then maybe next year he can find his way to some more meaningful playing time.
He's the Chicago Cubs of football. There's always next year.
That used to be true. There is physically going to be a next year for the Cubs,
sure,
whether or not it'll matter for anyone who would want to watch it.
Maybe.
Nah.
All right, so let's get into this. What's the news?
I would list the Chicago Cubs' relevance if we had to put like an injury tag on it. I'd call it doubtful. And they're doubtful to matter. But no. So to your point, there actually weren't that many fantasy relevant transactions, which is funny because of all the bluster for the week prior. Just not that much in the way of actual like movement. A lot of talk, very little action. Some defensive moves, but there's a different podcast we offer for that. It's called
D-Lines and
Money Lines. Check that out on Monday. I'm sure they'll talk about the impacts that happened on the defensive side because there were a few, but we're not going to go through that here today. What was interesting is that there have been plenty of stories right around the trade deadline. Not much of them are related to trades. So by now, everyone will have likely seen the Henry Ruggs news that transcended fantasy football circles pretty much immediately, and it went straight into like the actual national media because of what happened. And the details are still being worked out, and we're not really going to cover the details on this show because this is a fun show for fun topics. And that is not a fun most of the time. And that is not a fun topic. And here's what you need to know from a fantasy perspective. Henry Ruggs is just droppable. And realistically, it's in all formats, even in Dynasty for me. Are you concerned about holding him even in Dynasty?
No.
Henry Ruggs is droppable across the board. It's going to likely be a couple years before we can even think about revisiting that.
Yep.
So, and now we're going to move away from that topic as quickly as possible. So just drop Henry Ruggs, move on. Things that are more interesting. Oh, I don't have my tinfoil hat. Oh, I should go get my actual tinfoil hat for this. Next up on the docket, though, is Noah Fant. This is an interesting one that also gets into drama in the Mile High City, folks. So for those of you who maybe follow along with such things, Von Miller has an infamous Halloween party at a place called the Gothic in Denver every Halloween. It's a team activity. The entire team is typically there. This party has been an issue in the past. It tends to get really wild. It's expensive, and it's kind of a distraction. This is the party that, for those of you with a longer memory, might remember that caused Chad Bloodlines Kelly to wind up breaking and entering into someone's home. That's the same party. This year's party apparently got a little out of control again. There was a conversation around whether or not they were even going to have it, and they ended up having it. Suddenly, Von Miller is traded for a second and a third round pick. Noah Fant goes on social media and the radio, talked a little bit out of school too much, and then suddenly finds himself the same day on the COVID list. Now, I will say this. We were speculating in the background, wild speculation with no information, that those two ideas might be connected. It appears that they are not connected, and that Noah Fant has actually tested positive for COVID-19. That is very sad. It's distressing, is the reason why we're talking about it here. Noah Fant, suspicious timing and tinfoil hat theories aside, appears to have tested positive for COVID-19. And this is a situation to keep an eye on, because he hasn't technically been completely ruled out yet, because he appears to be actually vaccinated. But he's got a long way to go to get cleared to get ready to play for Sunday. Mm-hmm. And with tight end being as thin as it is, you may not have a quality replacement here. So bottom line, it's also concerning because we know how this goes. Somebody gets COVID, it's very likely that others will get COVID. Mm-hmm. So it's just a situation to monitor. So I'm curious, from your standpoint, who would you offer up as like some replacements? I think that's what's actually mostly relevant to anybody watching or listening to this right now. Noah Fant's probably not going to play on Sunday. Would we agree on that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's talk about replacements. Who would you like to replace widely available? I've got a couple names that are right here, but I'll kick it to you first. What speaks to you on things that are broadly available for a week 9 matchup at tight end?
Well, why don't you go first so I can look up what is actually widely available?
Okay.
That's the part I'm struggling with.
Sure. Dan Arnold is widely available.
Okay, yeah.
Under 10% rostered. Dan Arnold has, since he was traded to Jacksonville, an actual trade for the trade deadline roundup, Dan Arnold has been getting more and more involved. He had 10 targets last week. They are devoid of options in Jacksonville, and they're going to play from behind in every game, effectively every game. Mm-hmm. And he appears to be working himself pretty rapidly into that offense. He didn't have a great week the week before. He had a great week last week by tight end standards. Not so good the week before that. His first week there, he was involved. So I'm inclined, if I needed a spot starter, Dan Arnold is something to look at. And I've got a couple more, but do you want me to keep going?
I can't find it on Fantasy Pros. I'm sorry, I'm struggling.
You're fine.
Neil.
The next name,
so like Cole Komet is a guy. I don't know how widely available he is.
Cole Komet's largely available.
Yeah, I've got him in my top 10 this week against Pittsburgh. He's been fairly consistent the last couple of weeks, not so much with like big games or productive fantasy points, but just the fact that he's gotten in his last 3 games, 5 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets. And again, even with Noah Fant, he hasn't been that consistent or productive this season.
He's completely tight end dependent or touchdown dependent.
So he's just in that group of tight end guys that's, if he falls in the end zone, you did great. And if he doesn't, you had a bad week at the position. And I think Cole Komet falls into that category. David Njoku, I don't know if he's...
They're both widely available. David Njoku is widely available.
Okay, yeah, he's also in my
Cole
top 10
Komet's
this
widely
week,
available.
going up against Cincinnati.
Sure. Taking that job away from Austin Hooper.
Yes. And even with that, I've got Austin Hooper in my top 24. So if you're playing multiple tight ends for some reason in a league, then he's also an option. Pat Freiermuth.
That's actually the next name on my list after Dan Arnold. So Freiermuth has been getting significantly more involved, especially with whenever Eric Ebron hasn't been playing, which has been happening a bit recently due to his own injuries. Freiermuth is coming off back-to-back 7-target performances. He caught 4 of them last week and fell into the end zone.
Yeah.
That's really all you can expect. And then the week before that, he caught all 7 and he didn't even need to fall into the end zone to be a productive tight end. So Freiermuth, for as much as I was poo-pooing this idea a few weeks ago, if Eric Ebron's not going to play, they don't have anybody else to throw to over the middle with Juju Smith-Schuster being on IR.
Yep.
So it's just he's going to have to step up, and they appear to be comfortable with that.
Yep. And then let's see, another guy, Mo Alley Cox.
Yeah, Mo Alley Cox, widely available.
Okay, yeah, he's in my top 12 as well, going up against the Jets tomorrow night in that game. And then somebody else that's probably, I don't know, Tyler Conklin is a guy I've had for a while. I don't know if
Tyler Conklin is on the borderline. He might be available in your league.
And CJ Uzama is another one as well.
Also borderline, might be available in your league. But
also, if you're taking a huge dart throw and none of those guys are available, Albert O, who's
that's
the backup tight end in Denver.
That was my third name, widely available. Nobody even knows how to pronounce his last name. That includes me, and I live here, covered the team. They love Alberto in the Mile High City, and with no Noah Fant to get in his way,
right?
It's pretty much a lock-in replacement. I would feel better about either Dan Arnold or Freiermuth given their recent track records. But if I was really desperate, if I was in a deep league, Alberto for sure.
Yep.
Like a 16-team league, Alberto.
And again, we talked a little bit in the chat today about Adam Trautman, who's seen an uptick in targets over the last couple of weeks, and now with Trevor Siemian at quarterback, he had 4 targets in the 3 quarters with Siemian, so it's possible that maybe there's a slight uptick for Trautman. And then a guy that no one is talking about to the point that he's not even listed on the ECR in most cases, but McCole Pruitt, who is actually the starting tight end for Tennessee, has been getting more snaps, more targets, and more playing time than Anthony Firkser. People just do not want to let it go.
No, Anthony
he's
Firkser's
widely available. If you
Anthony
want to take a dart
droppable.
throw on Pruitt, you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, you don't need to roster Anthony Firkser. That the bloom is off the rose on that. We can move on. So just some names to run through to help people out who might be looking for a Noah Fant replacement. It's all bad, but there's choices at least. It's not as barren as it's been in other years when everybody gets hurt. So you've got options. I don't know how confident I feel in any of them, but as we've talked about for the entirety of the run up to this season, and now it feels like every week during the season, that's tight end. There's 3 guys you want in any given week. Maybe you could expand it to 4. And beyond that, it's who falls into the end zone. And that's it. Everybody, there's nobody else that gets the volume. So that was really all I had for just kind of tight end, helping people out. But sticking with tight end, just real quick, it was reported today, Logan Thomas is going to return to practice next week, and thank God for that, because we need every tight end that we can possibly get. So that, to me, just craters Ricky Seals-Jones' value. He's on bye this week anyway. Ricky Seals-Jones, nice Band-Aid, but you can drop him. You don't need that anymore.
Look at that. I found rostership percentage. Perfect. All right, good. Now
all right,
segment, yeah, we did it. I'll hold on to that just in case.
You want to go back through it?
No, it's okay. It's all
right. So that was just a quick note. That really wraps up the tight end segment of this kind of rundown. Moving into a little bit more wide receiver type of news. Michael Thomas announced today that confirmed that your speculation from 2 weeks ago was correct. He will not be playing in 2021. In redraft, Michael Thomas is droppable. In Dynasty, use your discretion. I probably wouldn't drop him in Dynasty, but in redraft, focus of this show, feel free to cut Michael Thomas. He will not be playing this year. Oh, well, too bad. So sad. And there you go. So not a whole lot more news or analysis than that, unless you want to get into Saints pass catchers, but I don't think that changes anything.
No, it's just status quo for the season. I think we're in agreement. I don't want to speak for you, but I think we're in agreement that Michael Thomas is not a Saint next year.
No, I would agree with that. No, there's very little chance that he's going to put on a Saints uniform ever again.
Given that information, if you do have Michael Thomas rostered in Dynasty, what do? What are the next steps here? Because he's obviously not doing anything for you this season. Is this something that you want to hold on to and find out where it is that he lands? Or do you just try to get whatever you can get for him right now?
No, I would hold on to him and see where he lands, because it's going to dictate a lot of the value around that. I think it depends. It's Dynasty. So what are you going to replace it with? In terms of, you'd have to get a trade together, which you could do, but there's not going to be anything on the waiver wire for you in a Dynasty league to help you out as a backfill. So
no.
You're kind of just stuck. And so if I'm stuck, There's no reason to drop him in a dynasty league. He's too valuable to drop him.
No.
And there's nothing that I'm going to pick up that's going to replace it. So you're telling me my choices are trade him now for whatever I think I can get.
Yeah.
Or wait until I get a landing spot and arm myself with the proper information to come up with an appropriate deal.
Right.
And for me, for my approach to dynasty, I would go with option B there and wait, see where he lands, and then figure out an appropriate deal. Because I'd hate to take a lowball offer to deal with it now, and then we get to next year and he's playing for a team like, you know what I'm saying? He could be playing for a team where he's going to be much more valuable. So I will say that idea depends on where you are with your dynasty team. Do I need one piece right now to go win a title? Okay, in that scenario, I might be more willing to listen to option A of get what I can get now to try and win now. But if my team is like middling or if this isn't going to help me win a title, I'm more conservative. I'll wait until I have the appropriate level of information to do what I need to do with it.
If you're rebuilding with Michael Thomas, you would hold it?
If I'm rebuilding with Michael Thomas, I'm probably I'm in the pool anyway.
So this is kind of my point. So he's 28 now. He'll be 29 next season. So he's kind of on the back end of his prime, and he's missed the last 2 years. I feel like there's definitely going to be rust even when he comes back, plus potentially a new offense. I feel like it's going to be really difficult to sell him at what would be a top 30 value in Dynasty.
But I don't think you're going to get that now. So I don't see how the value gets worse is kind of what I'm explaining. So how's it going to go down
right now
from what it is
Dynasty
currently?
Value, courtesy of our friends at Player Profiler. They've got Michael Thomas as the 33rd ranked wide receiver.
Okay.
And hold on, that does include rookies. So I will remove that real quick. Rookie picks, that is.
Yeah.
So that makes him 27, wide receiver 27.
Okay.
So a high-end wide receiver 3 is about how they have him valued. They have him ranked higher currently than Jalen Waddle. Would you rather have rookie Jalen Waddle or Michael Thomas?
Well, okay. I see where you're going with that because it's Jalen Waddle, even though I'm not really a Waddle guy. You take the youth in Dynasty pretty much always. And he's been kind of weird up and down. He's been good enough.
I still take the chance on it that in the next 5 years, which he's 6 years younger than Michael Thomas, he has a season.
Well, and you can still
Michael Thomas had.
You'll still be rostering and starting potentially Jalen Waddle 5 years from now, whereas Michael Thomas will have been retired for 2 years minimum.
Right. How about Hollywood Brown? He's ranked higher than Hollywood Brown, who I believe we agree he's the beta. He's the number 2 to Bateman on that roster.
And here's what I would say about that: if I could get Hollywood Brown for the rest of this season,
right,
for Michael Thomas, I'm probably going to do that. And then
that one might be difficult because of how he's played.
I know, and that's the weird thing about it is
here's a good one.
You'd have to get into like individual rosters at that point.
Because you were the captain of the Titanic and you sold your tickets right before the season started. Brandon Ayook.
I got so many picks for that.
Brandon Ayook is currently ranked 4 spots lower than Michael Thomas. He's 23.
Right. And see, I would take Ayook over Thomas at this point, mostly because he's 23. Yeah. So any of these young, like sophomore guys, I'm probably going to be interested.
Michael Pittman, he's having too good of a season.
Yeah, you're not going to do that. No.
Rondale Moore.
So that's more of a you thing than me. I like Rondale Moore fine, but he's a little small from what I'm looking at, and they're trying really hard to get him involved, but it just hasn't quite panned out yet. But you're more the Rondale Moore guy pounding the table. So I figured for you, that would be pretty straightforward, right?
For me, yes, I would do that.
Yeah. And for me, I'd have to
He's 21.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. That's kind of the attractive part.
I have potentially 9 years of Rondale
Moore
or to get out of the Michael Thomas business. I'm good with that.
So I guess for you, it sounds like, realistically speaking, you just want to trade Michael Thomas today and be out of the game, be out of the headache. Just don't deal with this anymore. We're moving on. We're on to Cincinnati.
I think for me, for youth, for sure. But so if you want to go a different direction,
that's rated going to.
Yeah, rated almost exactly the same is Michael Thomas and Allen Robinson.
Yeah, and see, that's more interesting.
They're
That's
the
an interesting
same
one.
age.
Well, that's the Spider-Man meme.
They're
the
both
same
going
age, they're
into an
both
off
playing-
season where they're basically going to be with a different team.
Yeah,
It's just Allen Robinson has played the last 2 years.
right. And so that's the Spider-Man meme.
Mhm.
You're picking between really similar situations. Same age, both going to be starting over with a new team in all likelihood the next year. And I would rather have Allen Robinson just because he, to this point, hasn't been injured. So you would think
Well,
he'd be able to ramp up a little bit more quickly.
Well, he has been injured in the past, just not recently.
Yes, but I
Yeah,
mean,
I
like,
know what you're saying.
not to the severity.
Yeah.
It's a severity thing.
Well, yeah. He tore his ACL, but it was 1 year, and it was
1
years
year,
ago.
came back, and hasn't missed hardly anything since then.
Correct,
Whereas Michael
correct.
Thomas, we know the saga of
But for
gets
me,
hurt.
if I could do that deal, I would do it 100% because Allen Robinson, even though he's wide receiver 60 in PPR right now, he's playing.
Right.
So
right.
you're telling me I could give up Michael Thomas, who's doing literally nothing for me the rest of the year, to get Allen Robinson, who could do something or could keep getting me 5 points a game, but 5 points is better than 0 points.
Right.
So I will take that and the chance that he gets into a good situation.
Well, and it's the long-term projection being the same. Yeah, that's the deciding factor. I totally get that. So I guess let's think about it this way. What would be the floor that you'd be willing to accept for Michael Thomas? Because it's not Allen Robinson. You'd have to go lower.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the meaningful advice for folks is for Dynasty. What would be the actual floor that you'd be willing to look at?
Question. Because a lot of these guys that are ranked behind him are either veterans like Brandon Cooks, who are having too good of a season to be able to get that
you couldn't
deal
do
done,
it. You couldn't do it right now. It wouldn't make sense.
or Robert Woods is the same deal.
Yeah, and I'd rather have
Dillon.
Robert Woods. I'd rather
Elijah
have Dillon even
Moore
at 31.
Like Elijah Moore has done literally nothing. Remember when people
Yeah.
were trying to tell us he was the next coming of AJ Brown?
I think he had a double-digit week in there somewhere. But yeah, he hasn't done much.
He's done
And
nothing.
bad team.
Terrace Marshall is ranked the same way. Corey Davis is in there.
And Corey Davis is hurt again.
Tyler Lockett,
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
he's 29, so he's actually slightly older.
Yeah, but you get a little bit more certainty with Tyler Lockett. I know what I'm getting. I don't love what I'm getting, but I know what I'm getting.
Yeah, Christian Kirk is younger. Darnell Mooney.
Darnell Mooney, I would do
Yeah,
pretty
me too.
pretty easily. That's a good one.
I think you have to go all the way down to Kenny Galladay
Yeah,
at 47.
I think you found it. I think that's the question because you got a guy
He's
who's now
28 years
10.
old. He's the same age. He's
Similar
basically
injury
giving you
problem.
no production right now.
Yeah.
Bad quarterback situation,
Oh, yeah.
locked in on that
All
contract
of
there
it.
for a while.
All the bad things.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think that's probably where you
I
hit
think
it.
that's where it is. It's the conversation of would you rather take your shot on Kenny Galladay or would you hope that Michael Thomas returns to form wherever else he's going to play?
Yeah. And
I think
everything
that's
below
where it
that is like Brian Edwards, Michael
No.
Gallup, Tyler Boyd,
No, God no.
OBJ, Curtis
No.
Samuel,
Out on all that.
Juju.
No,
Nothing. I don't want any of that.
I don't want any of that. Yeah, that's the last name. It's Kenny Galladay. Would
Yep.
you take Kenny Galladay straight up for Michael Thomas in
And I would not.
Dynasty
Yeah.
today? And I wouldn't either. I would rather the upside of Michael Thomas on at least the chance that he
Mhm.
locks in with a quality quarterback somewhere.
Yeah.
That I'd rather have the chance.
And
'cause
you know
I
what?
know,
I don't want to bounce around your list here and ruin the train of thought.
Go ahead.
But while we're on the subject, OBJ
Yeah, we'll do that one.
being
Yeah.
excused from the team today. Essentially, they were looking for a trade. They couldn't get a trade done. They thought they'd get a better offer, and they couldn't. Stefanski really wanted OBJ to stay, and
Oh, yeah.
management basically said, nah, he's not staying. We're getting rid of him no matter what. And it's this whole like bickering back and forth. And all of a sudden, he was supposed to practice today, and then they said, nah, never mind. Don't come anymore. We don't want you here.
Well, okay. There's another event there that you left off, which was Odell Beckham Jr.'s father
Right.
posted an 11-minute supercut
Yep.
of Odell Beckham being wide open
Mhm.
in games.
Yeah.
And Baker Mayfield not even looking that way. And that apparently was the straw that
catalyst,
broke
yeah.
the camel's back. That was the final nail. Because I've covered this for a long time, that Odell Beckham Jr. openly beefs with the Cleveland Browns when he doesn't get his way. It is not the first time we've had this conversation that they're on record. Kevin Stefanski himself is on record as saying, I got to get Odell going early because if we don't, I lose him for the second half. He just doesn't try. And I'm like, that's what I want to hear about my hugely overpaid wide receiver.
For sure.
Like, that's exactly what I want to hear, that he's a massive drama queen. Like, and so where we've made it now is Odell Beckham's father has apparently come in and just upset what was left of the apple cart here, to the point that now, you spelled it out there, they have sent Odell Beckham Jr. home and have said, we'll call you. Like, we'll let you know what we're going to do. Right. And you detailed this in our staff chat very well in terms of the contract implications, how bad it looks that they weren't able to get a deal done, and how also what a black eye it is that you can't get leadership on the same page as coaching.
Mm-hmm.
It's classic Cleveland Browns, folks. This is your father's Cleveland Browns right here. Mm-hmm. This is the same dysfunction that has plagued that organization for you and I are 34.
Yeah.
Our entire lives. Basically. And in fact, beyond that, longer than that. That's the same. This is the same dance that the Cleveland Browns always do.
But from our perspective, redraft, you're terrified if you've got.
Oh, he's borderline droppable already for me. So
he's very close. Again, you have to kind of hold out hope that he gets cut, lands in a situation where he's going to be productive and puts up something.
Right.
That's the hope. In Dynasty, this is the question that I kind of proposed to our Dynasty chat here. He is 29 years old currently. He is going into his age 30 season next year. There's the possibility that they just hold him out this whole year.
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned, I detailed it in the chat. They have to pay out his contract. It is now a guaranteed deal.
This is the last year of it.
Well, no, he's got 3 years left, but this is the last guaranteed year.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Correct. Yes.
So if he goes claimed on waivers, somebody absorbs that contract. However, since that's such a large contract that nobody wants to pay, he will likely clear waivers, in which case the Browns have to pay him everything. And then he can sign with whoever he wants for whatever he wants. So I would guess if you're him, you want to sign with a team that's competing. If you're a competing team, do you really want him in the locker room? That's a whole other discussion.
I would think it would depend on which team.
Sure. Kansas City.
Sure.
Kansas City.
Well, they're already
dysfunctional as hell.
They already signed Flash Gordon, wasted time and money. He like barely plays.
Yeah. So the whole point is, from a dynasty perspective, if you have OBJ, are you looking to move him? Probably.
Yeah, sure.
But are you trying to buy low?
No.
Because from a pure value standpoint, currently, he ranks at about a high-end round 2 pick in Dynasty. Sure. I feel like with all this news, all the drama, and him doing literally nothing all season, you could easily acquire Odell Beckham for a 3rd-round pick. And 3rd-round picks in Dynasty historically are coin flips. They're just wild guesses that we're all hoping pan out. After you get through the 1st round, really, the 2nd round is other guys who may have fallen a little bit, but for the most part,
they have potential.
Yeah, for the most part, if it's not a first 2 pick, it doesn't really matter. So for a 3rd-round pick, that's kind of a coin flip anyway. Do you take a chance on OBJ potentially doing something this year and then long-term maybe helping you out?
I've been on record on this for years, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
I don't roster Odell Beckham Jr.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stand Odell Beckham Jr. I acknowledge that when he's fully healthy and his brain is focused on what it needs to be focused on, that he's incredibly talented. However, I have very little evidence that either of those things is going to happen ever again.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
I get what you're saying. There's a certain level of upside to this whole arrangement because it's become so cheap,
right,
that I could make that same argument you just made. However, you're asking me personally, and me personally, I don't roster Odell Beckham Jr. I don't really care how cheap it is. It's not relevant to me. I'd rather have my third round pick back so I could go flip a coin somewhere else, because rostering Odell Beckham Jr. is the same thing. I detailed this last year. I detailed it in the preseason, and I'll detail it again briefly now. It's not a good sign when your 30-year-old, almost 30-year-old, highly priced wide receiver is a total basket case in the locker room. You can't. He is such a diva that he demands to be the alpha. He demands to be the one. He demands to have that target share that he used to have, that he commanded when he was in New York. And I just don't think he's that player anymore.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. You'd have, like, the nerd pointed out here in our chat, that he would really have to land in a situation like the Raiders, Lions, Jets, or Jags, where he'd be the definitive number one, getting the entire attention, so that you knew for sure he was going to be getting that many targets that he could be viable again. And I just don't know where that would be or what that. He's not going to sound. Yeah, exactly. Sounds like the perfect fit for the Raiders.
He's not fast enough.
He's not wrong, fast enough. If you're telling me right now he signed with the Raiders, can you name a receiver who would beat him on the Raiders?
No, and I can't. No, and
Darren Waller.
Darren Waller's,
that's
yes.
It.
If you wanted to include all pass catchers, sure.
Yeah.
But the only other one to discuss would be Hunter Renfrow, and they're completely different players.
Yeah.
Totally
so
different.
Derek Carr throwing the ball to OBJ, and we've already seen when Amari Cooper was with the Raiders and Derek Carr, how he looked okay a lot of the time.
Led the league in drops.
Yeah, but he didn't become a star in the league until he went to Dallas and started playing with Dak.
Right.
So I just don't know if there's a scenario anywhere where he becomes the alpha. Like if you go to Kansas City, you get the best QB situation you've ever had.
But you'll be third fiddle behind Hill and Travis Kelce.
Third at best. Yeah.
At best. Yeah. Once you learn the playbook.
Yep.
And he could bury Mecole Hardman and Byron Pringle and all those if he got his mind right.
Yeah.
Sure. But I have so little confidence in this that we don't do too much of this anymore. But remember when you and I used to have like the skull and crossbones list?
Mm-hmm.
Odell Beckham is on that list for me, and he hasn't come off in a long time because there's no.
Sure. Yeah, I just call that the Tyler Boyd list now.
Sure, exactly. The Tyler Boyd Memorial Skull and Crossbones list. Sure, he is on that list for me. There's almost zero price point that I'm interested in to roster Odell Beckham Jr. to deal with the headaches, to deal with just the wonky performances. And I'm just, sure. If he managed to find his way to the Raiders, that's like one of the only scenarios where I think he could return that third round pick to you. And then, you got to deal with them moving forward in Dynasty for this year and next year. And I just think that there's so many better options at this point. I'm much more willing to let somebody else deal with this head case than what my particular risk level would be. I'm like completely out on it.
Yeah.
I want no part.
That's fair. I personally would do it if I could get him for cheap enough, or if somebody is like you and they're just completely done and they cut him. And
that's
I
the
can
thing.
just add him for a back
end. That's the roster. One caveat that I was going to work my way to.
Yeah.
If my team was devoid of talent at wide receiver.
Yeah, if I'm wide receiver desperate.
And he gets cut.
Yep.
Okay. Different thing. Because that's just a waiver claim.
Yep.
I got no problem with that. But it's even my third round pick. I'm like, I might rather have the third round pick. I might be able to staple the third round pick to something more valuable and get something that I actually want.
Yeah.
As opposed to this. But no, the Odell Beckham thing is fascinating.
Yeah.
What boy.
How
remember 2016? Remember 2016? Right? It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And we've come all the way around on that. And that's the thing, by the way.
Friggin' 2016. Remember 2 years ago, 2019, when OBJ and Michael Thomas were both top 20 guys?
Life comes at you fast. But at this point, here's and I'll close with this, at least for my comments. So then we'll stop you if you have more. But from my side, I will never worry about this because there are too many people who still remember the Odell Beckham glory days. That's always been my thing. Mm-hmm. Even in redraft dynasty doesn't really matter for the purpose of this analytical thing. There's always somebody in these leagues, I find, that remembers the glory days and thinks they can recapture it with Odell.
Yeah.
So it's never financially attractive from my side. So I tend to just move on from it and let somebody else deal with that particular headache. And so if you're asking me straight up, okay, we'll play this game. Michael Thomas or Odell? Would you trade Michael Thomas for Odell Beckham Jr.? Straight up.
No.
Yeah, me either.
Mm-mm.
Me either. I think that tells you everything you need to know, considering Michael Thomas is not playing this year, and we've confirmed it.
Right.
That says a lot.
Our guy Mason, there are people out there that are adamant OBJ is still amazing. You can find a sucker in any league. That's 100% true.
That's what I'm telling you. It's exactly. Thank you, Mason.
100% true.
Thank you for putting that in one sentence.
Yep. And again, for me, I wouldn't say he's amazing right now. I would just say when he's on, if he's on, given the opportunity. Again, I hate to side with Odell Beckham's dad. Okay, far be it from me to side with.
Dangerous. You don't know anything about Odell Beckham Jr.'s father, and neither do I.
Famous for
who knows,
for calling out Alan Hearn's mom, but I will side with Odell Beckham's dad here. And look, he had an 11-minute compilation video of OBJ getting wide open. They just didn't throw him the ball.
You and I both have done video editing, right?
Yeah.
You have any idea? But I'm just talking about people who listen to this or are watching it right now. They might not have. Do you have any idea how hard it is to actually get 11 minutes of video together?
Right.
How much source material you need to actually have to get to 11 minutes?
Well,
that's
think
like
about that too. Like
a lot of input. Like
if you take like the condensed games on NFL Game Pass, they take literally one entire NFL game, and every single possession, every single play is condensed into a half hour. So when you think about that an entire game, all 4 quarters of a game is a half hour. For him to get 11 full minutes of content of Odell running plays and getting wide open and Baker not throwing him the ball, that's a lot of time. That's almost like a full quarter of him just running for 15 minutes of just him running, getting open, and then never being targeted.
I am curious if this is something that was created by Odell Beckham Jr.'s father.
Oh, of course.
Did he just find it on the internet?
Somebody gave it to him.
Did he
100%.
pay a guy to set this up? Like,
somebody set
what happened here? Like,
yeah,
but
he's been sitting on that for weeks.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably 100%. Was going to play it at Christmas for the family and then send it out early after his son didn't get traded. Mm-hmm. But it's a shame because this is one of those things where I think people think I hate Odell Beckham Jr. I don't hate Odell Beckham Jr. the person.
Right.
He seems like a perfectly reasoned. Well.
No, he doesn't. He seems like a crazy person.
Kind of crazy person. But here's the thing. Doesn't mean I hate him. It's just I don't want to deal with the nightmare that is rostering him in fantasy football.
Yep.
Every week it's something. Mm-hmm. Every week I got to hear about, he's beefing with this person, beefing with that.
The point I was making was I feel like when we're talking about our normal format of 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, and a flex, he fits into that flex consideration for me still. If he's in the right situation, and he's healthy, I feel like he can fit in between wide receiver 37 and 45.
Yeah, that's possible. It's effectively where he is now.
Yeah, he absolutely can do that. And again, if you're telling me I have to pay virtually nothing to do it, I'd throw a dart at it if I'm that desperate at wide receiver.
You'd have to be pretty desperate.
Got to be pretty desperate.
But yeah, frankly, there's other younger guys that I would rather that people have kind of given up on already that I think you could go through. But we'll see what happens here. Because to be honest with you, and I guess we'll move off Odell Beckham Jr. with this. I don't view him as droppable in redraft yet. I think there's a non-zero chance that he manages to get back on the field for Cleveland.
No,
so what would you?
I don't think he goes back on the field for Cleveland.
So is he just done for the year at this point, or are you more just saying that because I think that if they rather than pay him all that money, I think they might just IR him.
So he would have to actually be hurt to get IR'd.
They found a way to do that in plenty of other places.
And he could be put on an exempt list, but then you'd still have to pay him.
Yeah.
And even on IR, his number doesn't count against your cap.
You're still paying
but
him,
you still have to pay him out the guaranteed money. So it's not like they're saving anything by doing that. And it's not like they can sign anybody with the cap space they'd be creating. So it's not really doing anything for your team. And my whole thing was, I feel like they're more likely to cut him and let him go because if he is a member of the roster, then let's say they turn it around, the team gets hot and they win something.
Sure.
He would have to get a ring. And I feel like they'd rather cut him than let him have a ring. So I'm pretty sure that's the way that
what a world we live in. Yeah, I could see people being that petty.
Yes, 100%.
I've met people.
There's also a non-zero chance that he's like a healthy scratch and they hold him out for X amount of time until I believe week 13 because you have to be with a team a certain amount of time to be able to qualify for the playoffs. So they could cut him so he could sign anywhere, but he wouldn't be playoff eligible.
Right. So he'd have to.
And I'm sure they'd be okay with that, but he would file a grievance with the league.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
So again, you're getting into money things, which is why they were talking about to the agent today. So I feel like it's more likely he ultimately gets cut, he clears waivers, and he signs somewhere. But even as a wide receiver, when you sign somewhere, you have to learn the playbook. You have to build a rapport with the QB. There's no QB currently in the league that he's played with before. So he would have to build a new relationship.
Eli Manning's not coming back through that door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He'd have to build a new relationship with whoever it is he goes to. So it's going to take a couple of weeks. You're like a month away from him having any kind of relevance.
And we're on the second half of the regular season at this point. So you don't have a lot of time left.
For me, I'm not going to drop Odell Beckham yet, because if he does get declared ineligible for the rest of the season, then you can cut him. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
If he gets cut, released, waived, whatever you want to call it, and he does sign with someone else, it'll take him time to adapt. But the idea of him being on another team may make him a trade piece that you can move and get at least something back from somebody.
Maybe. Let's do this way. And we've spent more time on this than I ever thought we would, but it's a fertile topic for conversation. Okay. Mecole Hardman is available. Disappointment. Mecole Hardman is available on your waiver wire. You cutting Odell Beckham Jr. for him?
Probably not. No.
Well, realistically, that's as good as it's going to get on the waiver wire for most leagues this year. So I kind of led with my ace. You don't have too much else. Van Jefferson. No, now that Deshaun Jackson has been released.
Nope.
That's a trendy one. That's why
I know it is. I'm just not a fan.
Yeah, sure. Oh boy, it's kind of slim pickings out here at wide receiver. You know what I mean? Like, there's only so many that would be available.
Like, okay, we're looking for under 50%, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm digging around for. See, I'm the wrong person to ask about that. I struggle to be objective as it relates to Michael Gallup, and I've struggled to be objective as it relates to either player, frankly.
It's questionable.
It's questionable because he's coming back. It seems like that's finally going to happen. Boy, I would really have preferred to not have to talk about him being on the COVID list here in a moment. With him being on the COVID list, no. Next week, though, maybe.
Marquez Callaway.
You know my feelings on Marquez Callaway, and even then, actually, I'd say it's questionable.
I'd say probably not because of the QB situation.
Yeah,
Darnell Mooney is the next one up, and
Darnell Mooney, I would
do that for Mooney for sure.
Darnell Mooney, I would do that. I mean,
T.Y. Hilton is dead.
No, T.Y. Hilton's about to
Will
retire.
Fuller, no.
They say he's coming back with the finger, but I'm not doing that.
Rashad Bateman, I absolutely would.
That's an easy one. Well, I would absolutely do that too. That's simple.
Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, Jalen Reagor, I probably wouldn't, because he's just been god awful.
No.
He's just
okay. See, this is an interesting one, but again, it's my heart. Jameson Crowder.
Oh, I would probably do that, but again,
I would do it,
especially if I'm in a PPR league.
He's too valuable.
I know what I'm getting with Jameson
putting
Crowder.
Up numbers. Why
if he plays?
Why is Jameson Crowder only rostered?
Because he keeps missing time.
He's 81% available.
He keeps missing time. That's why. And people hate Jameson Crowder. But
Elijah
what
Moore, we kind of talked about.
We kind of talked about that. But like last
Ross
week,
St. Brown.
That's an interesting one too, because that's my heart. And my heart says yes, because he got on a little roll there for a while.
He has at least 5 targets in every game.
When he got on a roll for a while where he was putting up double digits in PPR for like 3 weeks in a row, and then the whole offense has kind of just collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can figure out how to get around that, here's what I would say about that. For redraft, I'd say it's 50-50 on that, and I'd probably wait until next week to do it because the Lions are on bye. So you get a week to kind of let that sort itself out to get more Odell Beckham information.
Right.
As soon as it comes out. So I'd wait a week on that decision. But, I mean, in Dynasty, I would probably do that.
Yeah, but he's not going to be available.
I know he's not going to be available. He was probably drafted.
Yeah.
So that's in redraft, though, I'd say 51-49 right now that I'm doing it, but I'd wait a week.
Darius Slayton?
No, I don't want Darius Slayton.
No. KJ Osborne.
That's the Mendoza line right there, possibly. That's the Mendoza line.
He only had 3 targets against Dallas.
Yeah,
but
they were
before the
whole offense was
bye, he had
atrocious.
4 games of at least 6
I know.
targets.
The Vikings is a tough one. We could talk about this on a different day because the Vikings have been Jekyll and Hyde.
Mhm.
They're either 3 touchdowns from Kirk Cousins in the games that go well, and then he's got an equal amount of games where it's 1 and they barely get 200 yards passing.
Right.
I might go KJ Osborne though there. I think I actually probably would. It's close.
Yeah.
That's really close.
It's real close for me.
That's
but
really close.
In PPR, I'd probably do it.
Yeah, in PPR, I'm probably doing it just because KJ Osborne's playing.
Right. Brian Edwards?
So,
no.
No. I'm going to need him to do something first.
Alan Lazard?
No.
Kendrick Bourne? No.
No.
Deontay Harris?
No.
Oh, that's a hilarious one. Donovan Peoples-Jones.
You want to just do all the other Rashard Higgins?
Oh man.
No.
You don't want DPJ?
I don't hate DPJ like a lot of people do, but I don't think I'm doing that. If he was to be formally released, yeah, I'll go pick up Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's he was hurt, but when OBJ was out, he had 6 targets, caught 5 for 70, and then 5 targets and caught 4 for 101.
I remember.
Even last year, he put up decent numbers.
So. It's whenever Odell's not playing, Donovan Peoples-Jones gets on the field.
Here's what I'm saying.
You okay?
Right now, consensus rostership, Donovan Peoples-Jones is only rostered in 3.7% of leagues across ESPN and Yahoo.
All ranging from
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
All ranging from Akron to Parma.
Yeah. Wherever you are right now, take the worst player on your bench and drop him for Donovan Peoples-Jones, because that is an easy smash.
Yeah, if Odell's actually going to get sat down for a while here, we've seen what happened.
This is the other one that boggles my mind, but Jamal Agnew is right below that.
Jamal Agnew is kind of a weird one. I don't think a lot of people know about Jamal Agnew.
Since the DJ Chark injury in week 4,
he's been doing a lot of that
DJ
Chark stuff.
25 targets in their last 3 games.
A lot of those targets we thought were going to go to Chenault have been going to Agnew. So
Jamal Agnew, I hate.
But I don't think a lot of people know about Jamal Agnew yet. I think in the general public, especially, they don't know about. Why would you? He's playing for Jacksonville, and they're terrible.
PPR, he has finished over the last 3 weeks wide receiver 37, 30, and 22.
He's he's on the page as far as relevant fantasy stuff at this point. If I was desperate for a wide receiver, you could do a lot worse than Jamal Agnew right now.
Yep. I think that's the list, though.
All right. Well, I think we covered that. So Odell Beckham Jr., completely unstartable until further notice.
Yeah,
he was already there anyway for me. And frankly, if any of the folks that we've gone through here float your boat, I got no problem with you dropping Odell Beckham Jr. at this point. Might try to trade him if you could find an Odell Beckham truther, to our guy Mason's point, because they're out there. But if I failed at trading him and I saw KJ Osborne out there, that's the one that was very appealing to me of the ones that you had. So moving on here, continuing on with wide receiver after that extended deep dive. Just a couple quick hitters on some other wide receivers. Sterling Shepard, what a career. I love Sterling Shepard, but this guy,
he took a crazy hit, went down.
Insane hit on Monday night. Yeah, goes down, failed to return. He's hurt again. They're saying he's going to miss some more time, more than likely. So the Giants have yet another injury to their receiver core and just to their team in general.
Yeah.
And then today the Giants had, initially it was reported as 13 positive COVID cases, and then that's getting parsed through. Doesn't look like it's quite as bad as that. Some of those might be false positives. So they're working that out, though. So you got a COVID outbreak for the Giants. No Sterling Shepard. Oh boy, the Giants is a mess. Speaking of that, since we're on the Giants, we'll dovetail slightly. Saquon Barkley was one of the players that tested positive for COVID-19. He was officially placed on the COVID list today. It appears that he is vaccinated because they are saying that he needs 2 negative tests that are 24 hours apart.
Mm-hmm.
That is the rule for people who are vaccinated. It is an interesting situation because he's still nursing the injury that's caused him to miss the last. And this is one where I know you. I still remember when we were on with Edwin, and you two were like, "He'll be back in 1 week. Do it!" And then 4 weeks later, coming up, it's
So he missed the 1 game, and then he was supposed to come back last week. He actually practiced all of last week.
He did,
and then they held him out as a precaution.
Apparently
and now this week he was supposed to come back and play for sure. And before he could even practice, he's on the COVID list. So I feel like he's probably just going to get held out this week through the bye.
Okay, that's what I was going to bring up here. I don't see a path for them to. Apparently, according to the other report I saw, he's still got swelling as well. So they're saying he still had swelling, but they were going to let him try to work through it for practice and see where they wound up at the end of the week. And now he can't practice. It's Wednesday as we're having this conversation. They're playing on Sunday. He couldn't practice until Friday. And I had another concern about Saquon anyway, which is what were the odds that they just turned him back on and said, okay, full workload for Saquon, go.
Right.
I don't think it was very high personally. So I think this just throws cold water all over Saquon playing
and that's
week.
Me too. Like at this point, you've already had a backup plan for Saquon Barkley if you've got him rostered anywhere. So if you're somebody who's managing Saquon Barkley this season, then you're hoping that he sits out. You don't want him to play this week because, again, you've got the bye week next week. It forces him out this week to rest. It forces him to rest next week. And then he can hopefully come back 100% in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and if that is the case,
100% in week 11. And
if he practices all week before week 11, I'll feel a lot better about them just throwing him back out there with no restrictions.
Yeah.
So that's your mini Giants roundup right there. If you have Sterling Shepard, you probably have another option because you've needed one, so you'll need it again. And then stay tuned on whatever else is going to happen with these COVID tests. And you and I are both dubious to the idea that, that Saquon's going to be able to get cleared in time to play this game, given all the other noise. Beyond that, I guess since we're talking about COVID
being immunized, what
a fun conversation this is going to be. Okay. So for those who maybe had to work today and weren't paying attention, Aaron Rodgers tests positive for COVID-19. My actual note on this is just what a mess, because he's out now officially for Sunday's game. And for those of you who maybe were paying attention a moment ago when we were talking about COVID tests and NFL rules as it relates to vaccinated players, you'll notice that Aaron Rodgers has already been ruled out.
Yeah.
How could that be? You might be asking yourself. Well, it's because it turns out that Aaron Rodgers is not actually vaccinated, despite the fact that he's been leading people to believe, whether you want to talk about lies of omission or boldface, actual lies, whatever. That's not really the point of this show. The point of this show is Aaron Rodgers is not playing. You will need a backup plan. However, I will say this. Oh my God, how could you ever trust Aaron Rodgers again now if you're Green Bay with this whole
here's the
what
crazy
is going
thing.
on?
So he said he was asked directly, have you been vaccinated? And he said, yeah, I'm immunized. And apparently he did some kind of homeopathic.
Homeopathic is the key word here. Yeah, to raise his antibody level, according to him.
Where he feels like
I'm assuming the Dalai Lama helped him with this because I know they're boys.
It was his personal doctor, probably the same one that Tom uses. That is not an appropriate gesture.
I don't care. It's how I feel in my heart.
So what he used his personal doctor to get immunized, and he felt that was good enough. Now we do have reports from the team and from sources inside the building that he has been wearing his mask and socially distancing inside the building and still following the protocols. So there's no fine. He doesn't have to face any kind of further actions, or there's no kind of anything that's going to happen to the Packers themselves because of his actions. However, he is out this week because of the situation with him being on the list. He has to be back. Yes, thank you, Mason. Doctor in quotation marks. He does have to stay away from the team
Guerrero, the doctor,
for 10 days, and he has to test negative when he comes back. So the earliest he can rejoin the team is next Saturday, which would be the day before their game against Seattle. So he's definitely out this week. Jordan Love is going to get the start against Kansas City. I mentioned it's amazing. The only other time the Packers and Chiefs have faced each other in the Mahomes era, Mahomes had the ankle injury, and it was Chad Henne going up against Aaron Rodgers. So they've still never played each other. It's amazing. So it's Jordan Love this week. Next week when they play Seattle, it'll either be Jordan Love again, or it'll be Aaron Rodgers with no practice for 2 weeks. So I feel like it's going to be Jordan Love for 2 weeks, and then maybe we see Rodgers back in week 11. I don't know.
No one
it's
does.
a disaster.
No one does. It's a complete
so at
disaster.
This point, so Aaron Rodgers obviously are finding another option, and QB is so friggin' deep. You can find any one of them off waivers and
check out Tua Tagovailoa playing Houston this week. Widely available.
Anybody. There's so many different options. It doesn't matter at quarterback. The real question is, how does this affect the Packers?
Oh, I've got thoughts on this.
If you've got Devante Adams, if you've got Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, Alan Lazard coming back from the COVID list, like how does this affect those guys?
For me, I mean, I think you saw the blueprint from last week. I don't see how I think they're going to run a very similar game plan to what happened last week with no Devante Adams, because the Packers can't catch a break. Mm-hmm. For those who might have missed it, Devante Adams missed last week's game with his own COVID precautionary issue that was going on. And when that happened, even with Aaron Rodgers playing, the Packers completely shifted play calling to a run first, heavy volume rushing attack featuring both AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones was more involved in the passing game, and he got the red zone work. Right. But AJ Dillon got all the between the tackle stuff, and that was coming off the multi-fumble performance. So I'm not worried about AJ Dillon getting sat down. I think the one that suffers here the most is Devante Adams.
Sure.
If you are rostering Devante Adams, I hate to break it to you, but you probably don't have better options. Maybe you do, but I doubt it.
So here's the problem is Jordan Love has been okay when we've seen him in flashes in the preseason. He's been all right. And again, like Devante, it's obviously a step down in quarterback production. Yeah. However, Kansas City's defense is so bad.
Oh yeah, they're atrocious.
There's every chance Devante Adams catches a 5-yard pass and runs at 80.
There's every chance that Devante Adams catches a 5-yard pass from the 5.
Yeah, I mean, he's still, I think, number 10 for me this week. He's still just barely inside of my rankings top 10
because this just happened today, so I haven't adjusted it yet.
So, I mean, again, to me, I still think I'm fine playing Devante Adams. I don't want any of the B guys.
Nope.
If Alan Lazard is back, I don't want that. MVS might be back this week. I don't want
Love either for reference.
No,
I don't want Love.
There are way better options out there.
Here's what I would still be starting on the Packers. It's a really short list. It's Aaron Jones. It's Devante Adams, because I doubt I have better options. And frankly, I'd still feel pretty good that he'll at a minimum get you wide receiver 2.
Yep.
So feel free to go with that.
Yep.
And then I would play AJ Dillon.
Yeah, I was going to say too, because for me,
that's it.
At that point, with what we saw from AJ Dillon last week, like he was already in the conversation for, is this somebody that I need to start?
Is he a flex? Is he a flex? Became the question.
Now with this information, I've got him at RB 29. Like he's right there for
me. All he has to do is fall into the end zone to make this worth it.
But even then, I think he's going to get enough touches. And that, again, Kansas City, horrible against the run. They are the number 1 run matchup for running backs. So AJ Dillon can plow through them and put up 100 yards.
Hence why I think what the game plan is, it's going to be the same game plan they ran last week. I'm going to body up, and I'm going to throw screens, and I'm going to run the ball down your throat because you can't stop it anyway.
Yep.
And frankly, if Devante Adams gets his, we'll try to get him involved. Great. If it doesn't happen, I'm not deviating from plan A, which is just pounding the ball and punishing it down your throat. And especially given the Chiefs' defense, to your point, they're not. I have very little confidence they're going to be able to.
Well, it's the same thing too. Like you want to keep it works in so many different levels, right? You want to keep the ball out of Jordan Love's hands. You don't want him to decide the game. You want to run the clock and keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands, and you want to run the ball against that horrible defensive line on the other side. Yeah. And to me, I feel like Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon are probably just going to alternate drives.
Pretty much.
Keep both of them fresh the entire game and just utilize them the same way to just.
That's what they were doing last week, except when they got into the red zone, Dillon comes off and Jones comes on because they like him near the goal line. And if they need to throw dump offs, they feel better about that. I can't find any real fault in it because it's been working. So go for it. But I think that's your game plan. And boy, what a fun game that was supposed to be on paper that now is going to be borderline unwatchable. So yeah, That's a nightmare. It's a nightmare scenario for the Packers. And I say that, but at the same time, there's every chance they can still win that game. And frankly, they can probably survive a week or two without Aaron Rodgers and still go to the playoffs.
Oh yeah, the Chiefs have been that bad. This is the same Chiefs team that almost blew it on Monday at home in Arrowhead against the Giants
with no Saquon.
When the Giants were doing everything they could to lose that game, and they still barely won.
Oh yeah, it is what it is at this point. The Chiefs have mismanaged that cap situation so badly that they've gone from being what should have been like a dynasty level team to now. They're not even necessarily the best team in that division.
Also, spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure that the Chiefs have yet to cover the spread this year, and they're already like a 7.5 point favorite over the Packers. So I'm going to go ahead and take that.
Smash that on. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, that's a good note right there. I'm sure they'll talk about that more on the betting side as we move forward. Shout out to Mason and Vishal. Keep up the good work, gentlemen. Keep dominating the bet spurts. That's amazing.
Keep on keeping on.
Just keep doing that because it tickles me in a way that if Loretta tickled me in that way, I'd be like, that's nice. But couple things still just to whip through here. In happier news, we do have a little bit of happier news. Christian McCaffrey was designated to return from IR today. I will point out, as we do periodically, that does not guarantee that he will be playing this week. And even if he does, by the way, in my opinion, I don't think they're going to give him the full wheels up CMC, do everything workload that he normally gets because he's been hurt quite a bit. I don't know that they're going to just run him out there and say, go do everything like you used to, Christian. I don't know about that. We could have a debate about that. But as far as actionable things, he was designated to return today. He has a shot at playing this week. It's not a guarantee. He might play this week. He might play next week. Whenever he does, I think his first game back, he's going to be on a little bit of a pitch count. That's my take on the situation.
Yep.
So, and if there's no other notes on that, then we have one more quick hitter. Elijah Mitchell misses practice today with a rib injury. Elijah Mitchell has been great. For really by all accounts, he's been really solid. What a waiver wire ad for a lot of folks this year. Now with the ribs, are you concerned about that at all? Are you worried about it? Are you gonna?
What concerns me about Elijah Mitchell is the same thing that's always concerned me: is the rest of the team getting healthy. Because now you have Jermichael Hasty coming back. This is his second week off of IR, and lurking in the shadows, the legend Jeff Wilson. Just waiting to fall into the end zone 3 times when he comes back,
or just waiting to catch a bunch of dump off passes. Like we'll have to see what happens with that. But okay, yeah, it's something to monitor. If you've been riding Elijah Mitchell and you've been profiting to this point, be aware that Jeff Wilson is coming back, and now Elijah Mitchell has a rib injury. They may give him a little bit less work to do with more folks getting healthy and with him now being injured. So just something to be aware of if I'm rostering Elijah Mitchell.
Well, that's the same thing. He's worked his way into that lead back role.
He's become Raheem Mostert, as Jack likes to call him. He's taken that side that.
Well, like he had 19 carries in week 1, 17 carries in week 2, and everybody was talking about who is this guy? Like, again, we talked about this. Like, Elijah Mitchell was one of my favorite highlight reels to put together when we were doing the draft show. Like, I was hoping he would fall into a good situation. When he was a 7th round pick, I thought, oh, well, he'll be so far down on that list, especially with Trey Sermon, that he's not going to do much. And then all of a sudden, Trey Sermon has just completely disappeared. And now it has become the Elijah Mitchell show. And he has had 19 and 17. Then he got hurt himself, missed 2 weeks, came back, split reps before the bye. But since the bye, 18 carries for over 100, 18 carries for over 100, a touchdown in each of those games. He's been consistent and good when he's been out there. It's just, I feel like once they're healthy and they have all the different weapons they want to use, he's going to be limited in what he can do.
The car wash starts again that they normally like to run as they hustle multiple guys through. Okay. But you're not trading like Elijah Mitchell at this point, are you?
No.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
think
either.
this is one of those scenarios where you kind of hit the jackpot on the waiver wire. You got him for fab or nothing.
It's what I said about James Robinson last year. It's like the equivalent of finding $20
There's
on the
no point in
ground. You just
training
put
him.
the $20 in your pocket and you move on. So as we wrap up here, we have two, and one I think this will actually be shorter, and it I know this will appeal. Well, this will require your input as the transitioning Cardinal fan. As like all people from Chicago do as they get older, they move. They move to Arizona.
Yep.
As people from Chicago get older, they move to Arizona, and Steve
That's
is no different. He's working his way there.
Yep.
He's already to Texas. He's almost there. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins both missed practice Wednesday. That is interesting, although not immediately super concerning. That happens. But AJ Green was also added to the COVID list, as we referenced earlier in the show.
Yeah.
So Arizona could be this huge mash unit on Sunday. I think Kyler Murray is going to play. Are you worried about that impacting his ability to put up his normal Kyler Murray numbers?
I'm worried about him impacting his season. That's what I'm worried about. That he
tries to play through this.
Yeah, and it makes it worse. That's my primary concern. I'd rather
he gets Roddy Whited.
Yeah, I'd rather he sit a week out and be okay for the rest of the year than kind of risk it for no apparent reason. I get that it's a game against San Francisco. You want to beat your division rival. I get all of that. Again, the most annoying thing I've seen today was, do you want Cliff Kingsbury? Do you want to sit down and have that conversation with Kyler? Because I don't. It's your job, Cliff.
It is legitimately your job.
Do your job.
It is. It's actually.
I wish he was sitting down this week personally. Like I said, just as somebody heavily invested in Kyler. However, I do think he'll still be fine. San Francisco's an easy matchup. I still have him as a top 10 play, just not number 1 where I normally would have him.
I have him like right at 10.
Yeah.
Right now, because I think he will be limited. Well, then if we're not worried about that overall, you're okay. You're expecting less than what you normally would. We agree. He's probably going to try and play through it. The wisdom in that is not
75% of Kyler Murray is still better than most of the league. So I will.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd rather deal with 75% of Kyler Murray than Kirk Cousins. So there you go. And that's like legitimately who he'd be ranked next to. And then DeAndre Hopkins, and just to point this out. DeAndre Hopkins is famous for not missing games.
Correct.
Sometimes that's not always the best plan. Like, for example, last week.
DeAndre Hopkins has, I don't think, practiced a single Wednesday this entire season.
No, I'm not worried about the Wednesday stuff.
He gets a lot of veteran Wednesdays, and I believe it was either last week or 2 weeks ago. He missed the entire week of practice.
He does that pretty regularly, too.
Never suited up. And then went out on the field and played most of the game. Last week, I know for sure he didn't practice at all. And he kept leaving the game, but he still came in and scored the long touchdown. He still came in and was being targeted. So
he would have scored a touchdown had they not taken that off the board, because of the face mask.
But still,
that's how he re-aggravated the hamstring. Is my point. So here's the thing. There's no analysis around DeAndre Hopkins, whether he plays or not. I'll put it to you this way. If he's playing for you in fantasy. He's too good. You don't have better options, more than likely.
Yep.
For me, my question becomes, do you try to trade DeAndre Hopkins at this point just to get out of it? Because he hasn't returned the wide receiver 1 level value that you were hoping for. He's hurt. Kyler's hurt. You want to try and just trade this on the name value of Hopkins and see what you can get back out? Or are you more inclined to stay put with Nuke?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right.
I'm good.
All right.
Again, this is another situation where 75% of DeAndre Hopkins we've seen is better than most of what you would get in return.
DeAndre Hopkins for Michael Pittman, straight up. You doing it?
Nope.
Okay.
Wouldn't even consider it.
Just a thought. Look, I'll tell you this right now. From everything I've read and from all the other folks in the industry, just Google DeAndre Hopkins trade and you'll find a list of articles that are all saying, DeAndre Hopkins, you got to trade him right now. You got to get him off your team. You got to get him from your team right now. And I'm like, you might live to regret that.
I mean, I know that it's a hamstring injury and those are nagging and all that. And
Well, they're also concerned about him not getting the volume that he's used to enjoying because they're getting AJ Green a little bit involved, and Rondale Moore gets stuff, and Christian Kirk gets stuff, and they're trying to spread it around a little bit more.
I guess,
Zach
but
Ertz.
Here's my point.
I'm not really worried about it.
He hasn't missed a game. He only had 2 targets last week.
Got
which
80
was
yards.
Which was his
60 yards, 65.
Yeah, which was his worst week of the season.
He was clearly hurt
in terms of targets.
He re-aggravated the hamstring running down the field. That's literally what happened.
Right.
The big,
but it was his worst week of the season in terms of targets. He only had the 2, 66 yards. He had an 8.6. He's still wide receiver 14 in PPR. I mean, okay, he's not putting up absurd numbers. He's not getting crazy value.
1, 2, or 3 like you were hoping.
But he's still a top 10 wide receiver in terms of talent. And right now he's ranked points wise at 14. I'm not what is it you would get for DeAndre Hopkins that you would think is an investment that makes sense?
Yeah, I'm not. First of all, I can answer that question, but first of all,
I'm just asking the general universe.
The general universe. I don't know what anyone would tell you. I would tell you that okay, we can play this game real fast. Justin Jefferson.
I would take Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, so would I. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. Stephon Diggs.
And Diggs, yep.
Yeah. Terry McLaurin.
That's probably the Mendoza line.
Yeah. Okay.
I would do McLaurin, but it would be very close.
Because then you're going to Pittman.
Nope.
You're going to what's his name? Cortland Sutton. AJ Brown.
Nope.
Yeah, I know you wouldn't.
Well, actually, that's close.
That's what I was saying. It's pretty close.
I'm gonna again. I got a couple weeks ago. We had the show, and I was right about Michael Thomas, but you were definitely right about AJ Brown. I missed on that one. Boy, did I miss on that one.
Yeah, and I didn't even post Shaq dunking gifs in our staff chat like some other childish people.
Yeah, 100%. I dunked all over that one. I got that one right. But the thing on Michael Thomas and AJ Brown got me distracted. AJ Brown, I missed on that one for sure. I thought he would be lower because of the passing and Julio Jones. Julio's not been healthy, but yeah, AJ Brown.
I've been vindicated to this point on my AJ Brown love. He is. I keep telling people they don't want to listen, but AJ Brown's
that's
great.
The thing is like they throw the ball 20 times a game, and when 15 of them go to AJ Brown, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. I don't care that you only threw 20 times a game when you throw all of them to the guy I need you to.
Exactly.
It doesn't make any difference to me.
Yeah,
so no, I've been that's one where I've been very happy with that advice because it's been paying off in a big way.
So AJ Brown is close for me. I think I'd still rather have Nuke, but it's very close.
So yeah, it's that's the thing. You're talking about something like that is what it would need to be. So if you could get something like that, I would be okay with it. But I don't know that you're going to get something like that given all the warts and things like that. DJ Moore, I'm going to say no to that. It's close, but I'm going to say no.
Nuke.
Yeah, it's close. I'm going to say no. And no one would trade you Cooper Kupp, so it's not relevant.
No. Like Cooper Kupp. So Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, they're untouchable.
Yeah, you're not getting any of that.
Debo, probably untouchable. DK Metcalf, I think I'd rather have a Nuke.
Yeah, well, it's the Geno thing.
Yeah. Devante Adams, untouchable.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, I'd rather have Nuke.
Yeah, because Antonio Brown's going to get back at some point and muck all that up again.
Hollywood Brown, I'd rather have Nuke.
Yeah, I don't want Hollywood.
Pittman, Adam Thielen.
Pittman is an interesting one because I'm warming up to the idea that Michael Pittman is a true wide receiver 1.
I don't know.
I don't know yet. It's too early to say, but I'm warming up to the idea is what I'm telling you.
We'll see.
We'll see. It's too early. That's why I wouldn't do it because it's too early.
I may have been a year early on that call.
Yeah, you might have been because that's one that's aging very well in the background where with T.Y. Hilton just not playing and him being able to get all the reps, doesn't matter that offense is terrible.
Yep.
He's been great. So, but it's getting to that area, right? Because then you're getting to Nuke himself. We're almost there at like 14.
Yep.
So it's an interesting one.
Because even then you're talking about if you were going to move Hopkins for what he's done on his name value and his production of this season, you would trade him for a guy like you're talking about, like Justin Jefferson, who's 21, or Diggs, who's 22,
right?
Who have, quote unquote, struggled this season. Deontay Johnson.
Sure.
Keenan Allen, AJ Brown, guys we had higher expectations for that haven't necessarily put up the big numbers.
Yeah.
So
If I could get somebody to believe that AJ Brown is like some sort of fool's gold type of situation, and I could get AJ Brown and a depth piece for Nuke, I'm doing that right now. Like, I'm
for
not
sure,
thinking twice about that. I'm going to do it today.
AJ, if I could get AJ Brown plus, I would absolutely.
I'm absolutely smashing that button, and I'm not
straight up. I think I'd still lean
Nuke. Right, you right.
Heart.
Even for me, and you know how much I love AJ Brown, and I'm like, it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
But if I could get AJ Brown plus a piece, I don't even really need that much as far as the other piece. Like, take what I can get.
Yep.
Like, it's so. Final topic here, Steve, because we're running a little long. We spent way more time on Odell Beckham Jr. than I ever thought possible, and I know we probably want to go eat dinner. So, last question. I thought, I eventually was going to ask this as like a funny kind of thing, but the more I look at it, I don't think it's that funny. Is Calvin Ridley retired?
For all intents and purposes, yes. At the time, he is currently retired.
So what do we do?
I mean, nothing. Well, what can you do?
You cut it? Do you cut him in redraft?
No.
See, I can't justify it. You definitely don't cut him in Dynasty.
No, obviously not.
You can't do that. That's off the table.
Yep.
In redraft, I think is the question. Do you cut Calvin Ridley?
No.
Not for me either. No, I want to hold on for a little while here and see what is going on. Now, if we'll have like Calvin Ridley watch, make a graphic or something. Because if he sits out for the next few weeks, okay, we'll revisit this.
Because again, he wasn't putting up the massive numbers you were hoping he would put up.
Right.
But at the same time, 10, 19, 14, 15, 12, he never went under 10 points. So he was consistently giving you good enough numbers to be a wide receiver too. He was just never a top 5 guy. And I kept saying in the preseason, I was concerned about him reaching that top 5 threshold, that top 10 maybe, but top 5 I think is asking too much with Julio gone. And now here we are. It's the Kyle Pitts show. Because we've got no Calvin Ridley. He's sitting out for an extended period of time to get his mental health right. Good for him. He's talked about this in the past that, he's had these issues that he wants to deal with. And now he came into this season to be the alpha. This is a contract year for him. It meant a lot to him financially for him to have a good year this year. And he wasn't putting up the numbers he was hoping to put up personally. So to deal with all the distractions and everything he's going through, again, good for him to step away and take a step back and, realize there's more important things in life than football. So, yeah.
He cost himself a lot of money, so I got to respect him, at least that to realize also that there's more important things in life than just having a stack of cash.
Yep.
Because his career's not over. No. He'll latch on with another team. I don't know if he'll be back in Atlanta. Well, that's a conversation
I think this is a non-zero chance that this is a Juju situation all over again.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He's a free agent at the end of the year.
But what do the Falcons have to backfill it?
Well, I mean, he's a free agent at the end of the year. He wants to get paid as an alpha, but he's never proven that. Nobody wants to give him that money, and he signs a 1-year deal to come back to the situation he knows, the offense he knows, the team he knows, to play in Atlanta one more season and try to have that contract year next year, where he can establish himself and be an alpha in 2023.
Right. Because if he was to hit the open market right now, he will not command that 4-year, $20 million or whatever it would be.
The Kenny Galladay money.
The Kenny Galladay money that he was probably going to command, because there's a lot of teams that would take a shot on Calvin Ridley getting into proper form.
Yep.
Like that would happen. He's still young enough and he's done enough to prove that much, that he's got potential.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's the one I wanted to close with, because it is the weirdest situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just strange. Like, you just don't see guys doing that. And I get why. Well, it makes a lot of sense.
Not only that, but it's like in week 8, he talked about stepping out, being out for personal reasons, and he wasn't even on the injury report. We had no idea he was going to miss any time, and
they
then all of a sudden,
right before the game started.
Yeah. All of a sudden, he was listed as an active, and we're like, "What's going on here?" And then it became a whole thing.
Well, I assumed it was actually something much worse, because we've seen that happen before, and usually there's some horror story that happens behind the scenes.
Yeah,
doesn't seem like that's the case. Obviously, we don't know, but yeah, it's just a tough situation where I agree with you. I don't think you can drop him yet. Now, we'll talk about this again in a couple weeks, and then I think the answer to that question might change. But you're just kind of stuck.
Yep.
You can't cut him. You can't trade him.
Yep.
You can't IR him even. Well, you might be able to IR him, depending on your league rules.
Sure. And again, this is another one too, where it's like, because he's not playing, because he's out, and you have no idea how long he's out. If you're a team we're through 8 weeks, right? So if you're a team that's 3-5, 4-4, and you've got Calvin Ridley, and he was supposed to be a centerpiece, a linchpin of your team, and you don't have him, you're probably looking to move him on the name. And if I'm a team that's 6-2, 7-1, 8-0, and I know I'm going to the playoffs, and I can get Calvin Ridley, a guy who's guaranteed 10 points a week and has been getting basically 10 targets a game when he's played this year for nothing. I could get him for a back end piece off of my bench to potentially be a stud wide receiver for me down the stretch in the playoffs. I'd absolutely go acquire Calvin Ridley.
Oh, I would do the same thing if I was 7-1, for example, and I needed a depth wide receiver or something like that, and it was not going to cost. It would literally cost me functionally something that I probably picked off.
If it's something I needed and not, or wanted and not needed.
Yeah. So if it's just something that I have on the back end of my team and I'm not really playing it because I've got better options.
Yep.
Yeah, I might do that. I'm trying to think of a guy that would fit that name as we wrap up here, like a name to go to that.
That you could swap straight.
Well, something that I wouldn't really care about that I got that would be like an ancillary piece that might be attractive enough to make that deal actually happen.
Christian Kirk.
That's a good one. AJ Green would be another good one if we're going to do that. Like
he's a little bit lower down, but like Christian Kirk
is
wide receiver 27 right now in PPR scoring. AJ Green is 31.
30 something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Christian Kirk has been fairly consistent this year. He's been a solid piece. I would love to have him on my roster if I was missing Calvin Ridley and needed consistent production. So I think Christian Kirk would absolutely be enough to probably get that deal done. And if I would be replacing Christian Kirk in my roster, potentially with Calvin Ridley down the line, then yes.
Because if I'm in that scenario where I'm 7-1 and I have Christian Kirk, I probably don't need Christian Kirk. Whereas Calvin Ridley might start some meaningful games for me at some point as we get to the playoffs. So that's it, Steve. We covered it. It's a lot of news this week, folks. I'm sorry. We try not to do news shows that are just news related and news heavy, but with the trade deadline and all these COVID outbreaks that have happened, I'm having flashbacks to last year, actually, Steve, where we had several shows where it was just, all right, COVID update roundup, folks. Set your lineup. That's kind of how this week has gone so far.
Yep. But not bad. Not bad. A lot of information, a lot to get through, way more OBJ than anyone ever expected or could have wanted.
We went 20 minutes long because we spent 20 minutes talking about Odell Beckham Jr. in a way that I was not. I was just going to talk about it.
Should have been more prepared for it. Nope.
Yeah.
Yep. Sore subject.
It's my orange hat that it put it in your brain. We got to talk about Odell Beckham Jr.
All right. Well, again, what I got it back here. Follow us everywhere at Nonsense FF. I don't know how to do this in my head. At Nonsense FF, like, subscribe on the channel wherever you're watching. Make sure you're following us on Twitch. Make sure you're following us on Facebook, the YouTube channel, subscribe, and then the Patreon, again, for $1, patreon.com/important nonsense. You can come join the discussion. We are having a fantastic time. I also just put out there, so I will throw it out to everyone here as well, our DraftKings League that we've been doing every week. Ton of fun. It is open to everybody that is a follower of the show, everybody that's in our Discord, anybody in our community. It's still on our Twitter page at Nonsense FF. But if you want to play, there is a free game and there is a money game. You can play the $5 game if you want to do that. But if you want to play the free contest, it's free. You set a lineup, and whatever your highest scoring week is, wherever you rank. So if you finish 4th in one and 7th in the other, we only count your 4. That's all that matters. But we switched up the scoring format so that basically you get points if you finish in the top 3. And if you don't finish in the top 3, or you miss a week, or you're out a week, it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt you. So just play. Just have fun. If you finish number 1 the rest of the season, you could get 30 points. The leader currently has 19. The leader of our fan group has 11. And remember, whoever wins of the fan group gets a free MVP subscription for the 2022 season. So there you go. It's free to play. You could win a subscription to importantnonsense.com for next
That's
year.
a really great deal, actually, considering you don't have to put anything down on it, because normally what that would be, it's $5 a month and it gets you all of our content, including including what I think are some of the most valuable pieces of content that we spend a lot of time on in the off season. While everybody else is off on vacation, Steve is locked in his basement, putting together a spreadsheet.
My projections dungeon.
Yeah, that spreadsheet is worth enough that it's worth at least $60.
Right.
So you're getting something that's probably like $100 value for no
free.
actual outlay. Yeah.
Yep. So again, it's fun to play, free to play, or you can join the money league and try to win money every week. Either way, come have fun with us on the DK League. It's a lot of fun, really enjoyable. But that's it. So, Neil, anything else?
No, just keep up the nonsense. We'll see you next Wednesday.
That's right. Follow the show, like I said, at NonsenseFF, at @nonsense_Neil, at @nonsense_Steve. And until next week, just keep up the nonsense.
Music for this podcast is provided by Lee Rosevere. I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!